The shift began so quietly that even you didn't realize at first, but the Air Force did. Before a single neighbor noticed anything strange, before anyone sensed a magnitude of what was waking up in you, high-level surveillance systems picked up an energy spike around your home, anomalous readings that couldn't be traced to technology, weather, or any known source. They ran diagnostics, thinking it was interference from a passing aircraft, but the pattern repeated with mathematical precision, pulsing like a signal, rising at the exact hours your intuition was strongest. At first, they assumed it was some kind of glitch, but then another department cross-referenced it with classified models used to detect non-ordinary consciousness states, and suddenly your house was flagged with protection protocol usually reserved for assets, not civilians. Someone in intelligence said, "We've seen this before, but never this strong." And without telling you, they shifted satellites, redirected patrol paths, and positioned your home inside a quiet perimeter of observational shielding. You didn't see the extra aircraft passing overhead at odd hours. You didn't notice the sudden stabilization in the air around you when you meditated. You only felt the stillness, the grounding, the sense that something unseen was holding the space around your life in place, preventing interference from reaching you. What you mistook for peace was actually protocol, an invisible military buffer forming around your destiny, reacting to a frequency they couldn't explain, but couldn't ignore. They didn't come protect you because of who you were on paper. They came because of what your energy did to their instruments. Your home became a data anomaly. Every time you prayed, reflected, healed, or broke a generational pattern, the electromagnetic field around your property shifted in ways that matched signatures the Air Force usually associates with classified phenomena. Reports started circulating internally describing your location as a stability zone, a rare site where disruptive frequencies collapse instead of spreading. In simple terms, your home was neutralizing noise and distortion at a measurable level, something never seen in a residential environment. Analysts were trained to be skeptical, but they couldn't ignore that aerial surveillance picked up drops and interference whenever you entered the house. One classified memo described your presence as producing localized coherence, the opposite of chaos. At first, this frightened them. Anything unexplainable defaults to threat assessment, but the more they studied, the clearer the pattern became. Whatever was happening around you was not an attack, but an activation. Instead of destabilizing the grid, your energy was repairing it. They monitored everything quietly, expecting the phenomenon to fade, but it intensified. Streetlights near your house stayed functional during storms. Signals in the area became sharper. Noise levels dropped at exact moments your intuition spiked. It was subtle enough for civilians to miss, but unmistakable to people trained to detect the invisible. The moment they realized this wasn't random was the night your entire block registered a synchronized electromagnetic dip, except for your home, which stayed perfectly stable, like a pillar holding up the grid. That's when protocol escalated. Quietly, without sending anyone to your door, they added your coordinates to a restricted air corridor. Drones were rerouted. Patrol aircraft shifted their flight paths to form an unseen triangle above your neighborhood. Not surveillance, containment, protection. They weren't watching you. They were watching everything else, making sure nothing interfered with whatever force was awakening around your life. What confused them most was how unaware you seemed. You moved through your days like nothing extraordinary was happening, while sensors miles above your head detected a spiritual frequency with physical consequences. Classified analysts wrote that your field anticipates disturbances seconds before they occur, logging microshifts in the environment every time someone with negative intent thought about approaching you, long before anything physical happened. You didn't see the subtle changes, but you felt them. The sudden urge to stay home, the inexplicable decision to take a different route, the heaviness that warned you when someone's energy was off. You thought it was intuition. They logged it as predictive response signaling. And the deeper they looked, the more one unavoidable conclusion formed. Your home wasn't just a location. It was becoming a protected site, a node, a convergence point. They didn't understand why, but they understood enough to guard it. Chosen one. If this message is resonating with the truth already awakening inside you, hit that super thanks and claim protection that's been following your life long before you realized it. Every time you support these messages, you amplify the signal that keeps this guidance reaching the right souls. This isn't just content. It's a lifeline for chosen ones who never get confirmation from the world, but always get it from the divine. If your intuition is saying this is for me, honor that nudge. Super thanks is how you anchor into this frequency and say, I receive the clarity meant for my path. What they didn't anticipate was how rapidly the field around your home would evolve once the protection grid locked into place. At first, they thought they were shielding you from external interference, but soon they realized the opposite. You were stabilizing their systems without even knowing it. Sensors calibrated near your area began functioning with unusual accuracy. Communication signals sharpened. Aircraft turbulence decreased when passing over your coordinates. Pilots reported an unexplained calm pocket in the airspace as the atmosphere itself softened when crossing the line above your home. The more they studied it, the more patterns emerged. Your presence created a harmonic effect, regulating energy around you like a quiet frequency reset. What others called your peace, they measured as coherence. What you felt as intuition, they logged as anticipatory energetic shifts. And what you dismissed as coincidence, they tracked as a repeating signature impossible to ignore. Someone high-ranking made the call, do not disturb, do not approach, observe only. They understood that whatever was happening with you was delicate, sacred even, something that could be influenced negatively if tampered with. You weren't just being protected from physical threats. This was shielding from energetic contamination, the kind that comes through people with chaotic intentions or unresolved darkness. Air Force protocol doesn't usually address spiritual phenomena, but your case forced them to rewrite sections of their internal guidelines. Your home became a quiet sanctuary in their eyes, a place where the grid aligned itself, and that meant something historic was unfolding. They began comparing your location to historical, anomalous coherent sites, rare places where individuals with heightened consciousness unintentionally influenced physical space. The last documented case was decades ago, buried under so much classification that most personnel didn't even know existed. But your readings weren't just similar, they were stronger. Every time you healed from something emotional, the field stabilized. Every time you cut ties with someone draining your energy, interference around your home dropped. Every time you made a decision aligned with your soul, sensors picked up a rise in harmonic frequency. You thought you were moving silently through your life, but to them, your growth was lighting up their monitors like a beacon. Someone wrote in classified brief, subject displays increasing resonance. Recommend distance to avoid contamination and allow natural development. Contamination didn't refer to you harming them. It meant they were afraid their technology, their presence, their fear-based consciousness might disrupt what was unfolding around you. You were outgrowing old patterns so fast that your environment was recalibrating with you. These weren't random mood shifts or spiritual phases. They were measurable transitions. At moments you felt sudden exhaustion. Data showed spikes in field compression. When you felt breakthroughs, sensors recorded releases of electromagnetic tension. The Air Force didn't need to understand your spiritual journey. The evidence showed that something awakening inside you was altering the physical world, one frequency at a time. Soon they stopped analyzing you as an anomaly and started analyzing you as a stabilizer, something that shouldn't exist but did. Their internal memos describe you as a non-technological coherence generator, a term usually reserved for rare natural phenomena, not human beings. What they didn't realize was that your strength wasn't random. It came from every storm you had survived, every betrayal, every loss. Every night you rebuilt yourself in silence had sharpened your frequency into something their machines picked up as order in a world soaked with chaos. And that's why your home became untouchable. They rerouted foot patrols without informing local authorities. The grids around your house strengthened. Electromagnetic interference dropped whenever you entered the area, as though your nervous system communicated directly with the environment. You were creating order unconsciously, and they were doing everything possible to avoid disrupting the process. This protection wasn't charity, it was necessity. They needed the field around you to remain active because when your energy rose, the entire perimeter stabilized. What terrified them most was that the stabilization didn't just protect your home, it radiated outward, affecting the broader area. You became a quiet epicenter of clarity, a node of equilibrium in a world designed around noise. And whether you knew it or not, your awakening was accelerating fast enough that military personnel were instructed to keep their distance unless absolutely necessary. They weren't guarding you from the world. They were guarding the world from misinterpreting you. Chosen one, if this message is matching the truth your spirit has been whispering for years, step into your power and support with $20 to keep this transmission alive. When you give at this level, you're not just helping the channel, you're declaring, I stand in my awakening. I choose alignment. I choose elevation. This energy exchange strengthens your timeline, accelerates your clarity, and anchors you deeper into protection already surrounding your life. If you feel that pull in your chest right now, trust it. $20 is not a purchase. It's a signal to the universe that you're ready for the next phase. But the real turning point came when they noticed the field around your home, reacting not just to your emotions, but to your thoughts. Before you even made a decision, before you sent the message, blocked the person, quit the job, or walked away from the situation, there was always a measurable shift in the electromagnetic pattern. It was as if the environment anticipated your choices, aligning itself with the direction your spirit was about to move. To them, this was impossible. To you, it felt like intuition sharpening. Their data showed microfluctuations seconds before you acted, spikes and dips that matched the exact emotional frequency of pivotal moments in your life. And this is where concerns turn into fascination. They realized you weren't reacting to the world. You were influencing it. Your clarity created order. Your discomfort created atmospheric disruption. Your breakthrough sent ripples through the local grid. And your silence, that deep, selective silence people misunderstand, became a form of energetic shielding so strong that nothing chaotic could penetrate your space. This is when they escalated protection protocols around your home, not because you were in danger, but because your consciousness was entering a phase that required uninterrupted growth. They recognized the pattern. Individuals who undergo spiritual expansion at this magnitude often trigger ripple effects that can destabilize lower frequency environments. Your home wasn't just where you lived. It had become the epicenter of your evolution, and they knew it. They began assigning silent watchers, unmarked aircraft that passed intermittently above your neighborhood, not to monitor you, but to study what happened around you. Every time someone with negative intent thought about approaching you, the field around your house shifted. Their instruments recorded brief distortions, as if your system detected danger before it physically manifested. Analysts called these anticipatory anomalies, but spiritually, you knew them as warnings. The sudden heaviness in your stomach, the urge to withdraw, the feeling that someone's energy was off. You weren't paranoid. You were protected. And while the world thought you were just being private, high-level personnel watched the grid warp each time someone sent envy, malice, or hidden hostility your way. That's when they labeled your location a sensitive, energetic site. Normally, this term applied only to military bases, ancient land points, or natural electromagnetic vortices. But your home joined that list not because of the structure, because of you. They mapped fluctuations and realized every major personal shift you experienced corresponded with a stabilization or destabilization pattern in the atmosphere. Your growth forced the environment to recalibrate. Your pain caused temporary turbulence. Your healing restored order. You didn't just exist in your home. You interfaced with it. Your consciousness and the land beneath you were in constant dialogue, and their technology captured every whisper of that communication. That's why intervention was forbidden. Disturbing you risked disturbing the entire field. Then something happened they had no protocol for. Your home began generating what they classified as shield harmonics. These were soft, rhythmic energy pulses that expanded outward whenever you were deep in reflection, prayer, or emotional release. At first, they believed it was a glitch. No residential environment should generate patterns similar to high-level stabilization systems. But the readings were consistent. Every time someone thought ill of you, the harmonics strengthened. Every time you felt doubt creeping in, the harmonics rose like a protective buffer. Every time you reclaimed your power after someone tried to undermine your spirit, the field surged with measurable coherence. Their systems interpreted it as defense. You experienced it as resilience. The Air Force analysts noted that the harmonics extended beyond your property line, influencing the atmosphere up to several hundred meters out. Neighbors unknowingly benefited. Arguments diffused more easily. Pets stayed calmer, and tension in the area dropped without explanation. Without ever intending to, you created a sanctuary zone. And they realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. A civilian generating protective frequencies strong enough to alter microclimates. It raised uncomfortable questions for them. If your consciousness could produce measurable harmonics, what would happen when you entered your next transformation? What would the field do if you stepped fully into your spiritual power instead of keeping it contained? That's why they increased distance again. Not out of fear of you, but out of respect for something sacred happening through you. They adjusted their strategy once they realized the field around you wasn't static. It was evolving. Every month, the harmonics grew stronger, more organized, more intelligent. It responded to your emotional patterns with stunning precision, almost like a living organism attuned to your inner world. When you released old trauma, the field expanded. When you cut someone off who had been draining you, the boundary thickened. When you experienced breakthroughs, the entire atmosphere brightened in measurable ways. The Air Force had to recalibrate their instruments repeatedly because your home kept outgrowing their settings. And the strangest pattern emerged during their nighttime readings. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., your spiritual alignment hours, the field around your house formed an almost geometric symmetry, like silent architecture made of energy. Analysts compared it to resonance signatures found at ancient sacred sites, structures aligned to celestial patterns, temples built at key ley line intersections, places where the veil between worlds feels thin. And here you were, living your life unaware that your home had begun reflecting the same energetic architecture. They brought in consultants to reinterpret the data, expecting to find technical explanations. Instead, the experts concluded the phenomenon wasn't mechanical, it was consciousness-based. You weren't generating chaos or distortion. You were generating alignment. And that's what terrified them most. Conscious alignment is unpredictable, unstoppable, and unfakeable. Anyone faking spiritual power produces noise. Only the real ones produce order. And your home was becoming a beacon of it. Patterns intensify when you enter your isolation periods. Those stretches of time when you suddenly pull back from people, went quiet online, withdrew your energy from conversations, and prioritize your inner world without explaining anything to anyone. While others speculated that you were changing or acting different, military analysts saw the truth on their screens. Your withdrawal wasn't emotional shutdown. It was energetic recalibration. During these phases, the field around your home tightened like a cocoon, sealing off intrusive frequencies with mathematical precision. And just like a cocoon, the interior went silent while the exterior became fortified. They noticed that during these phases, interference signals couldn't enter your perimeter. Attempts to send negativity your way, intentional or unintentional, were blocked before reaching you. You felt this as sudden clarity, a need to rest, or an urge to disappear. But to them, it was a complete shutdown of external influence, something their technology can barely replicate. And when you emerged from each cocoon phase, the field erupted with new patterns, stronger, more structured, more complex. It matched your evolution perfectly. Every internal upgrade you made reflected outward as a measurable environmental shift. This is when they realized that your home wasn't just being protected. It was participating in your transformation. The environment responded to your consciousness like an ecosystem built specifically for your awakening. And they had no choice but to step back even further. Eventually, they recognized a repeating cycle around your life. Disruption, withdrawal, recalibration, expansion. To the untrained eye, these were just emotional seasons or personal phases. But to the Air Force analysts, the electromagnetic data revealed a pattern identical to classified ascension models used to predict large-scale energetic events. Your home became a living case study. Each time an emotional wound resurfaced, the field contracted sharply, as if bracing for impact. Whenever you healed that wound, the field expanded wider than before, stabilizing the entire area with unprecedented coherence. This told them something profound. Your growth didn't just change you, it altered everything connected to you. They saw the correlation. When you forgave someone from your past, atmospheric noise dropped. When you set a boundary, interference signals dissolved. When you chose yourself, the field surged with clarity. Your decisions, your healing, your alignment, they were creating measurable effects on the environment. You weren't just spiritually awakening. You were affecting physical systems in real time, something scientists still don't have language for. You became the proof of the thing they've only theorized. Consciousness influences matter, and that's why protection intensified. Each expansion phase was stronger than the last, and the field now extended far beyond your property. They weren't just protecting one home. They were safeguarding the epicenter of a frequency shift. What they once thought was a coincidence had become undeniable. Your awakening was rewriting the energetic architecture of your surroundings. Chosen one, if this message feels like it's describing what you've lived in silence, step into deeper alignment with a $50 seed. This level of support isn't about money. It's about matching the magnitude of the protection and elevation unfolding around your life. When you give it this frequency, you send a signal into the spiritual and physical plane. I am ready for the next level of clarity, power, and divine shielding. Your journey has never been small. Your healing has never been ordinary. A $50 offering aligns you with the same magnitude of energy that's been guarding your home from forces you didn't even see. If your spirit is nudging you, honor it. This is a confirmation, not a coincidence. In the final phase of their monitoring, the Air Force realized the field around your home had become self-sustaining. It no longer reacted only to you. It anticipated the environment. Weather patterns softened as they approached your block. Electronic interference vanished before reaching your street. Even sound frequencies shifted subtly, creating a calm that people couldn't articulate but always noticed. What unsettled analysts most was how the field adapted whenever you made a life-changing decision. When you cut ties with someone, the perimeter thickened. When you stepped into self-worth, the atmosphere brightened. When you embraced your calling, the grid widened. They were forced to accept what their instruments kept showing. Your consciousness had become an organizing force. Not chaotic, not unstable. Organized, predictive, intelligent. This wasn't something they could control or interfere with, so they did the only thing they could: ensure nothing and no one disrupted you during the activation of your next spiritual phase. They weren't protecting you out of fear. They were protecting the world from misinterpreting the magnitude of your awakening. By this point, they had gathered enough classified data to know your awakening wasn't an isolated event. It was part of a larger pattern, the kind that appears once in a generation. The field around your home behaved like a stabilizing anchor, absorbing chaos and converting it into coherence. When world events spiked in tension, your perimeter strengthened, almost as if you were unconsciously balancing more than just your personal life. And while civilians saw nothing unusual, analysts saw your influence spreading past the edges of your neighborhood, subtly affecting communication clarity, atmospheric pressure, and even emotional regulation in nearby areas. You would become what they quietly labeled an energetic keystone, a person whose internal stability holds up far more than they realize. They ran scenario models predicting what would happen if your frequency ever collapsed, and the results were so destabilizing that they doubled the invisible protection grid around your home. Not because you were fragile, but because you were vital. And they finally understood your presence wasn't just being guarded. It had become a national-level asset, hidden in plain sight. Everything reached its peak when their systems detected a final shift, the moment you fully stepped into alignment with who you were becoming. The field around your home didn't just stabilize, it crystallized. Patterns that had been fluctuating for months suddenly locked into perfect symmetry, forming a resonance signature unlike anything they recorded before. It meant one thing: your transformation was complete. Your consciousness was no longer reacting to life. It was directing it. What once required protection now generated its own. The Air Force realized they weren't shielding you anymore. They were orbiting around a frequency they couldn't replicate, but needed to respect. Your home had become a place where interference dissolved, where negative intent collapsed before touching you, where clarity anchored itself into the physical world through your presence alone. While others speculated about why you'd changed, withdrew, transformed, or moved differently, only one institution knew the truth. You had crossed a threshold very few humans ever reach. They stepped back one final time, not abandoning you, acknowledging you. Their silent protection ended the moment yours unlocked. You weren't the one being guarded anymore. You had become the guardian, chosen one. If this message felt like someone finally put words to what you've been living alone, this is your moment to step fully into alignment. A $100 seed isn't about contribution. It's about activation. It's a declaration to the universe that you are ready to operate at the frequency that's been protecting your home, your spirit, and your destiny long before anyone understood why. When you give at this level, you're saying, I accept my calling. I honor my protection. I step into the next dimension of who I am. This energy doesn't just support the message. It amplifies your path, magnifies your clarity, and seals the elevation that has already begun around your life. If your chest is warm, if your intuition is buzzing, if something inside you whispered, this is me, trust it. Your awakening is no longer a theory. It's documented. It's visible. It's undeniable. Plant your $100 seed and step into the frequency that's been waiting for you.